Tell you another person who's trucking the truth, Amanda Chase. She bails out of the Republican Senatorial Caucus. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. I love Amanda Chase because she doesn't care. I mean, this is like the politician that doesn't care. Isn't that why we elected Trump, right? She just doesn't care. She does whatever she wants. And so she bails from the Republican Senatorial Caucus. She says, I had enough of your nonsense. They reelect Tommy Norment as, what did they reelect? They had their meeting in Harrisonburg. So the Senate caucus leadership remains intact. All of Amanda's non-friends there. Tommy Norment is the chairman, or whatever it is, minority leader. Bless his heart, as my mother would say, 91 years old. Staying as number 2 in command, Ryan McDougal, man of the people. Oh, come on, John, stop. And then, here's the good news. Senator Stanley's the whip. He should be like the minority leader. He's the whip. Stanley's the whip. There's another whip in there. I kind of forget. I think Obenchain, he's one of the whips or something. But Republican leadership stays intact. So Amanda Chase, who already got kicked out of the Chesterfield Republican Party because she didn't support the party nominee for sheriff, Carl Leonard. She backed somebody running it as an independent, which is her right. So they kicked her out of the party. They kicked me out of Chesapeake, too. I've been kicked out of Chesapeake. I keep going there. I pay them the money, and then they kick me out again. They haven't kicked out my wife. They love kicking us out. Why'd they kick us out? I don't know. Because we backed like Christy Newcraig or something. And Shirley Forbes, that runs the thing, has banned anybody in Chesapeake from going on my show. So they kicked us out. But we'll be back. They need the money. We'll come back, pay our fee, and then they can unceremoniously kick us out again. Amanda Chase joining us now. Senator Chesterfield won a big re-election. Amanda, great to have you.
Well, good morning and happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, happy Thanksgiving, Amanda. So Jeff Ryer and the Senate caucus puts out kind of a blistering email saying that you've resigned from the Senate caucus and that they were kind of miffed because you participated and you voted for their leadership and then you want out. And so I figured, okay, before I read that on the air and just take their one side of it, I would get Amanda Chase's side. So you went to Harrisonburg, you went to the meetings, you voted for various leadership members or voted against them. You voted in the races, participated, and then said you're out of the caucus. Can you shed some light on your decision-making here?
Sure, and I appreciate that opportunity. You know, I've been an active member of the Republican Party since about 2008, and one of the biggest frustration that me as just a Republican voter has had is that these candidates that we produce, that we vote on, end up in the general elections are a far cry from what the average Republican wants to vote. And you're thinking, of all the people we could have chosen, how'd we end up with this guy? So, or girl. And so, 12 years ago, I got involved with Republican Party local politics and tried to make a difference in that process. And I think other people share this concern, and I'll get to your question here in a second, is we have got to rebrand the Republican Party. We have a Republican creed, and there's so many elected officials that do not adhere to that plumb line. And I think that we should return to that. I think before the GOP and the Republican Party of Virginia can get more credibility and more support and more money, they've got to pledge that our candidates and our elected officials are going to stick to that. And if they don't, they should be kicked out. That's the only way that we're going to gain any type of momentum. This idea of just voting for someone because they've got an R by their name. I'm a Republican, true, and I'm not looking to be an independent. I'm independent-minded. I'm a strong, conservative voice who is a Republican, but I'm a Republican. So let's get back to what you were talking about. I expressed to leadership before we came to this meeting, this Senate finance retreat, in which Republicans, Democrats, all senators were there for a briefing on the fiscal state of the Commonwealth. But prior to those meetings, we each caucus and have meetings, and this is whenever the Republican Senate caucus chooses their leadership. I let the leadership know well in advance that if Tommy Norment was chosen as leader again, that I would walk, that I could no longer participate in those caucus meetings, that I would no longer be a part of the caucus. And just to refresh the memories, y'all may or may not know this, whenever I was first elected back in 2015, I also did not support Senator Norman, and I told him in advance back 4 years ago, and then again today. This last go around. And nothing personal. I actually personally like him as a person. However, Tommy's ideology on policy is more. A lot more moderate, and some would argue even more Democrat-like. And when the rest of your caucus tends to be a little bit more to the right of that, I just think it's time for new leadership. And, I am not convinced, and everybody's looked at my reelection campaign, and they're just shaking their heads like, how did you even survive that? Mm-hmm. I got very little to no support. If anything, my caucus hurt me this go around. After the whole Capitol Police incident, mm-hmm. I did not receive but one phone call, and that was from Senator DeStef saying, hey, what happened? Are you okay? They just came out and endorsed a Capitol Police officer. Mm-hmm. And, there's a communication issue there. And so, I felt the entire time I was running for re-election, I did not have the support of my caucus. I just didn't, and the leadership. Very little, I heard very little from them. If anything, it was just, it was not what you would expect when you're running in a reelection campaign. And finally, at the end of it all, they did not even contribute financially to my campaign. Senator Norment did not give me even one dime, which is not typical, especially in a heated race. And so I'm just sending a message back. Look, I respectfully, I value very much what type of leadership I put over me. I'm not going to send leadership that does not support me fully, wholeheartedly. I have a tremendous staff that stood by me through thick and through thin, mm-hmm. through this whole re-election campaign, and, mm-hmm. and they were my rock and my help. And so I'm sending a clear message. I would love to be a part of that caucus, but I'm not going to sit under leadership that doesn't support me, value my voice. And, I will continue to work across the aisle like I have for the past 4 years. Mm-hmm. I will continue to work with anyone that wants to work with me. I've been very effective as a legislator in getting bipartisan work done in the General Assembly, and I'll continue to do that. But I've heard from the people back home, and they don't want listen, for the first time in 27 years, the GOP has lost complete control of the state of Virginia and the mm-hmm. Commonwealth. The House has appropriately changed their leadership. The Senate has not. And so, whenever things aren't going our way, and yes, we fought a hard-fought battle in the Senate, and yes, we could have lost more seats. I wish we could have kept more. We lost 2. But, Senator Norment has been in leadership, I believe, since 2008. And, there's seasons, but I feel like we should also take turns. And, someone else, I'm disappointed that one of the more senior members of my caucus who's been there for a while and understands the way things run and would step up to the plate. But, there was not the desire for that in the caucus.
So let me get this straight. By the way, you're on the John Fredericks Show. This is Amanda Chase, a Republican state senator from Chesterfield. She just won re-election to another 4-year term. That was about 3 weeks ago. She went to the Harrisonburg Senate Republican Caucus where Tommy Norment and the whole leadership team got revoted in, and Amanda Chase has bailed from the caucus. So did Norment have any opposition, or was it fait accompli?
So that's a really good question. And there is some discrepancy on what the caucus says happened and what I feel like happened. It was very, I looked at newly elected Jen Keegan, who was also in that meeting, and she raised her hand a couple times. She's like, "Who are we voting for? What's going on?" Leadership has been there so long that they forget that there are newer people in the caucus that may not understand the process that's set forth in these meetings, and that's symptomatic of what I've experienced over the past 4 years. The process, they're like, this is going to be a ballot process, and I wrote Senator Steve Newman on my ballot.
But Newman wasn't actively campaigning. I mean, if you look at the House, and you said they appropriately changed leadership, well, two things happened. Number one, Kirk Cox stepped down, so that was it. Then you have a void, and then there were two candidates running for minority leader. There was Terry, House of Delegates member Terry Kilgore from Southwest Virginia, who we backed wholeheartedly,
Mm-hmm.
and then there was Todd Gilbert from Shenandoah. He won, but there was a contested race. So, I mean, in the Senate, there was nobody campaigning against Norment, right? So you had no alternative. You could write a name in, but there was nobody actively seeking votes against Norment. And it sounds like what you're saying, this is a personal thing, right, against Norment. You don't like the way he ran the caucus. You don't like the result he got, and you don't like the fact that he didn't give your re-election campaign any money, right? Is that the basic reasons?
I would actually disagree with that. Here's what I would say to that. The Senate is very different than the House. I mean, there's only 40 of us. We campaign differently. The House is they're just run very differently. We have different rules, different culture than in the House. Very, very different. And we nominate people amongst ourselves. We don't have people actively campaigning for different positions. I've never seen that.
Was anybody else nominated other than Tommy?
Well, we would not. My understanding of the process is that we were to put our choice for whatever position that was being put forward, that we were to write that on a ballot, because we were all handed a ballot. It was done privately. It was not an open type forum. It was, write down your selection, whoever you wanted to nominate or whoever you wanted to be the leader, write it on that ballot that we were given. That's my understanding of the process. And, no one actively campaigned, but that's not the culture in the Senate. I've never in the 4 years I've been there had anyone to openly campaign or advocate, to be this, that, or the other. It's just, it's just a different culture there. All
right, so you've got 19 senators, right? You're now 21-19, so that means that at least 10 Republican senators voted for Norment. End of the story. I mean, he gets reelected by your colleagues. You don't think it was a good idea. You don't like his leadership. I mean, as you pointed out, there's one argument to say, and I said this from the beginning, if the Senate ended up down 21-19, pop the champagne, Amanda, that was the best they were ever going to do. There was no way Sturdivant was going to win that race. He was a horrible candidate that ran a horrible campaign, and the Loudoun County seat of Dick Black was gone. Didn't matter who they ran or what kind of a campaign it was. They made it somewhat competitive, but these two seats were gone. The two seats that could have been lost, Jen Kiggins for Frank Wagner's seat in the Beach and Siobhan Donovan, they won. So there's an argument to say that the Senate really did the best they could do. Now, as far as not giving you any money, you were in a competitive race. Did they give other people money that were not money that were in competitive races, or do you feel you just got singled out?
Well, I feel like, there's more to the conversation than this. One of the first things that I mentioned, under Senate leadership, we passed, and keeping in mind that we have control of the GOP, or we had control of the GOP, and you take a look at Leader Norment, one of the things that concerned me during reconvene, this whole issue about the Second Amendment, I had a lot of people saying, that's all you talk about. And I said, yeah, because here's why. Because Senator Norment put forward legislation to restrict a law-abiding citizen's ability to protect themselves. That's going to be one of the biggest issues that we dealt with in that last reconvene session, and he was already willing to compromise on that.
Right.
I just think if you have leadership that's and also we passed Medicaid expansion, and I know you supported that. I did not, and the majority of the caucus did not. Tax increases for the Williamsburg area. It's an ideological difference between Senator Norment and most of the people that sit in that caucus, and you always have to ask yourself. Is he really with me? Is he really with me whenever ideologically he stands, more toward the Democratic side of these issues when the rest of the caucus is conservative? And you always have to, ask yourself, is he really with us whenever we're fighting these battles? Is his heart behind that? You look at the number of uncontested Senate seats. Yeah. We did not even run a Republican candidate in a lot of these districts.
Right.
And all this money that was poured in there, I'm like, a lot of these senators who didn't have races were pouring money into my race. I know Cray Deeds poured at least $5,000 into my opponent's race.
I agree with that.
So I'm like, we've got to be more strategic here. It really wasn't a personal anything. I really actually do like Senator Norment, and we worked well together over the last 4 years. This was really more of a business decision I just feel like I was sending a message to the caucus, look, I love everybody here, and I meant that. I worked together with everybody for 4 years. We worked together well, and I appreciated his leadership. But we have another 4-year term to work
basically
together.
You wanted to send a message, right? And the message is you're unhappy with the leadership, you're unhappy with the direction of the leadership in the caucus, and you wanted to send the message by simply not leaving and doing kumbaya, but by withdrawing from the caucus. So, for your constituents, is that going to affect your assignment to committees that you want to be on when the new Senate reconvenes?
Well, that was a calculated decision that I made. And number one, we are not in control. The Republicans will have zero input, zero control over committee assignments. The Democrats will be selecting all the committee assignments. They'll be selecting which committees we're on. We don't get any input on that, so forth and so on. And everyone knows I'm an outspoken conservative. All these committees that I've been able to be on, health and ed, transportation, local governments, privileges and elections, they know where I stand on these issues, the Democrats, because I'm very vocal. Would I have even been able to be on those committees had I not gone in this direction? No, probably not. They're probably going to put us all on committees that we don't want to be on, to be quite frankly, if we're put on them at all. So there's that. Sometimes you have to take a calculated decision on, if we were in the majority, would I have done that? Absolutely not. But we're not. Mm-hmm. And so will it affect, first of all, I am a Republican. I will have an R by my name. There's a history in the Senate with Republicans. We haven't always had one unified caucus. Mm-hmm. We've had multiple caucuses. There was a time when Republican senators did not even caucus. Mm-hmm. So this notion, that I'm not going to be on committees or anything like that, I don't believe that. I believe that it would not matter one way or the other. The Democrats are going to be selecting those committee assignments, and they also know, where I stand on the issues. There's no surprise there. So, for me, I felt like this time, given the environment that we're in, it was the right time to send a message from my people back home in my district who are saying, what is going on with the Republican Party? Why do we keep losing election? Why do we keep electing the same leadership and expecting different results? I sent a message on behalf of my district that said, you know what? I love all the people in this room, but we need to reevaluate the leadership we're putting over top of us. It's nothing personal. It's a business decision. But just like the House did, they chose different leadership, fresh new ideas, different perspective, different way of thinking of things. And we're going to continue with the same ideas, the same perspective. Let's give someone else a chance. Senator Norment's been there since 2008, respectfully, and he is a good leader. Despite, we have ideological differences, he has been a good leader for the past. He's really brought the caucus together on a number of issues. But that said, after, being in there since 2008, hey, let's give someone else. Let's give Stanley. I mean, at least we would all be entertained, right? Let's give someone else an opportunity in a minority leader position. I
don't disagree with that. I mean, I was kind of surprised when Norment just slid in with no opposition. I think sometimes it's time for change, especially when you lose the majority. You just want new leadership, new blood. So I don't necessarily disagree with that. But let me ask you this. Have you got a single, and you got to be, this is my final question, we're running out of time, be candid here. Have you gotten a single phone call from any other Republican in your caucus, elected senator, that either said, A, what the hell are you doing, or B, great move? Have you gotten any feedback at all, Amanda?
Well, I mean, I have in the caucus meeting. I mean, there were some people who were very supportive, and they're like, we understand, given your election, your race, why you would feel that way, and we're supportive. I mean, they were disappointed. But it doesn't mean that, I'm not going to, have conversations, with my colleagues. It doesn't take a caucus to communicate. I'm still going to do the work of the people, and I'm still going to communicate with fellow legislators. Just because you don't caucus together doesn't mean that you don't communicate and you don't collaborate. We're going to continue to do that. And, even at the Senate Finance Retreat, I enjoyed, conversations and everything with my colleagues, and that's not going to change. But, sometimes you have to be bold.
Let me throw this out at you, and then we have to go. All right, because I believe in being bold. I really am sympathetic to where you're coming from, right? And I think you know that. And I'm really an enthusiastic supporter of yours because you have the chutzpah to do what you believe in and stand for your ideas and throw caution to the wind. And it's very refreshing, to be honest. I just have to say that in all candor, you've really been a breath of fresh air. Even though a lot of things you did, I wouldn't have done them, I didn't agree with them, doesn't matter. I respect the fact that you're your own person. Have you thought about running for Republican Party of Virginia chairman? And then maybe through your leadership, if you won that, you could actually change the way the party goes about things. Have you considered that? The election is in May. If you were to get in, you would probably win. What do you think about that? And then I have to go.
Well, I've had a number of people to reach out to me personally. I have not thought about that. I don't know that I'm interested in that. I feel like my role in the Senate takes most of any free time that I have. I take that very seriously. I will say that I'm honored, I'm flattered by those that would say that, and I do feel like there needs to be some major leadership changes. And first of all, I would want to give a special shout out to Jack Wilson, because even though he may not have agreed with some of the things I did, he did give me his endorsement, even after the committee, basically discharged me from the local committee. And, the caucus, in my opinion, did very little to support me. If anything, work against me. Jack Wilson did stand behind me, even though he didn't agree with me. He said, you are the nominee, and so therefore I support you. So, that's, I don't have any intentions or plans to run for party chair. I just don't, but I appreciate it.
All right, I got to go. Obviously, we're desperately searching for a candidate to run for Republican Party chair, or I am.
It's
anyway.
A thankless job.
I know. Well, that's why we can't get anybody, and you know who is going to take is going to end up taking it over, not mentioning any names. Her name is Cynthia Dunbar, but not mentioning names. John Fredericks Radio Network, I want to thank Amanda Chase for being with us. Thank you for your candor, Amanda, and good luck with your committee assignments. And looks like you'll have to cozy up to the Godfather, Dick Saslaw, to get anything. John Fredericks Radio Network, got to roll.